In the quiet hours, when the world slows its relentless pace and the mind seeks solace in distant tales, let us journey to a place where the impossible has become reality, a minuscule principality perched between mountains and sea, where fortune and history have danced a peculiar waltz for centuries. This is Monaco, a name that whispers luxury, wealth, and a remarkable story of survival against overwhelming odds. As the night deepens around us, settle in and allow your thoughts to drift to the azure waters of the Mediterranean. The gentle lapping of waves against ancient stone, the soft caress of a warm breeze carrying the scent of salt and jasmine. We begin our journey not in the present day of gleaming towers and purring supercars, but in the distant past, when Monaco was simply a rocky promontory jutting into the sea. Close your eyes and envision a limestone outcrop rising dramatically from the Mediterranean, bare and windswept, catching the golden light of a setting sun. This is the Rocher de Monaco, the Rock of Monaco, as it stood thousands of years ago, long before the glittering casinos and luxury apartments, before the royal dynasty that would define its fate. This was simply a natural harbor, a shelter from storms for ancient mariners. The rock has watched silently as empires rose and fell around it. The Phoenicians, those master sailors of antiquity, established a colony here around 900 BCE, building small shrines to their god Melkart. They came for the harbor, a natural sanctuary in rough seas. The limestone cliff rising sharply from the water offered protection from attacks and storms alike. They called it Monoikos, which some scholars believe means single house or single temple in ancient Greek, referring perhaps to the solitary temple that once crowned the promontory. Imagine the scene: wooden ships with colorful sails approaching the harbor at dusk, the scent of cedar wood mixing with salt spray. Merchants exchanging exotic good spices, fabrics, olive oil brought from distant lands. The wind whispers through ropes and canvas, carrying voices speaking languages long forgotten. The Rocher stands eternal, watching these ephemeral human activities with the patience of stone. Time passes, the rhythmic pulse of the tides continues its endless cycle. The sun rises and sets over the Mediterranean countless times. Empires expand and contract. The Greeks come, then the Romans. The port of Monoikos becomes a stopping point on the coastal road linking Italy to Gaul. The Emperor Augustus includes it in his province of the Maritime Alps. Roman ships dock in the natural harbor, bringing soldiers, administrators, and the trappings of Roman civilization. In those days, the rock was sparsely populated. A few simple structures, a watchtower perhaps, a small settlement clinging to the slopes. At night, oil lamps cast a warm glow, their light reflected in the dark waters below. Fishermen mended their nets by this light, while above them, the vast Mediterranean sky revealed its blanket of stars. The same stars sailors used to navigate these waters. The Roman Empire eventually crumbles, as all empires must. The great sea that was once called Mare Nostrum, our sea, becomes a dangerous place of competing powers. Pirates roam the waters. Trade diminishes. The little outpost on the rock becomes isolated, forgotten by the wider world. Its inhabitants turn inward, fishing the nearby waters, cultivating small gardens on terraces cut into the limestone, surviving as best they can. The early medieval period passes in relative obscurity for Monaco. Waves of invaders wash over the region: Visigoths, Ostrogoths, Lombards, Saracens. The rock is sometimes occupied, sometimes abandoned, but always endures. The harbor silts up with sand and debris. The ancient paths become overgrown. Time seems to hold its breath here, waiting. Then, in the 10th century, the Counts of Provence begin to assert control over the coastline. They clear the region of Saracen raiders and establish a measure of stability. Monaco becomes a small but strategic outpost, guarding the coastal route. The Genoese, the rising maritime power across the water, take an interest in the natural harbour. They understand its potential value as a fortified port. By the 12th century, Emperor Frederick Barbarossa has granted the Rock of Monaco to the Republic of Genoa. The Genoese build fortifications, strengthen the harbour, and station a garrison there. Monaco becomes a forward operating base for Genoese commercial and military ventures. The sound of hammers and chisels echoes across the water as stone is shaped and placed, as walls rise to define and defend the settlement. The Mediterranean sun beats down on these new constructions, bleaching the limestone to a brilliant white. From a distance, ships can see the fortress gleaming like a jewel set in the coastline. At night, the darkness is broken only by the occasional torch marking the entrance to the harbour or the passage of the watch along the walls. And so we arrive at the year 1191, when the Genoese decide to establish a colony on the rock. They begin construction of a fortress on January 10th, a date still commemorated in Monaco. Imagine the scene. Scores of workers hauling stone and timber up the steep slopes, the sound of their labor carrying across the water. Dust rises in the Mediterranean light, transforming the workers into ghostly figures. The fortress slowly takes shape, its walls growing thicker, higher, more imposing with each passing day. But this is not yet the Monaco we know. That story, the story of a remarkable family and their even more remarkable survival, has not yet begun. We must wait a century more, until the fateful night of January 8th, 1297, when everything changed for the tiny fortress on the rock. Let us pause here. As the medieval night settles over the Mediterranean, the waves continue their eternal conversation with the shore. Stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. The fortress on the rock slumbers, unaware of the momentous events soon to unfold. Events that will set in motion 8 centuries of continuous rule by a single family, the longest ruling dynasty in Europe. The air grows cooler as night deepens. Imagine yourself standing on the shore, looking up at the fortress silhouetted against the stars. The scent of the sea surrounds you, mingled with wild herbs growing in the crevices of the limestone. Far off, perhaps you hear the cry of a night bird, or the distant splash of a fish jumping in the moonlight. This is the stage upon which our story will unfold. Now we turn to the Grimaldis, the family whose fate would become inseparable from Monaco's. Their origin story begins not on the rock, but in Genoa, where they were a powerful family aligned with the Guelphs, supporters of the Pope in the bitter conflict with the Ghibellines, who supported the Holy Roman Emperor. This seemingly distant political division would prove crucial to Monaco's destiny. In the late 13th century, civil strife in Genoa forced many Guelph families, including the Grimaldis, into exile. Among them was Francesco Grimaldi, whose daring plan would forever change the fate of Monaco and earn him the nickname Il Malizia, the Cunning One. On that January night in 1297, Francesco Grimaldi approached the fortress of Monaco disguised as a Franciscan monk. Picture the scene: a bitter winter evening, the wind carrying the sting of salt spray, dark clouds obscuring the moon. A solitary figure in a humble brown robe stands before the fortress gates, requesting shelter from the cold. His hood is drawn forward, concealing his face. His hands are hidden in the voluminous sleeves of his habit. The unsuspecting guards, perhaps moved by Christian charity, perhaps simply following protocol for religious travelers, open the gates to admit the apparent monk. It is their final mistake. for beneath his robes, Francesco Grimaldi conceals a sword. Once inside, he draws his weapon and fights his way to the gates, throwing them open to admit his waiting men-at-arms. The night erupts in chaos shouts, the clash of steel, running footsteps on stone, the fortress awakened to danger too late. By morning, the Grimaldi flag flies over Monaco. Francesco has seized the rock in a coup that would become legendary, immortalized centuries later in Monaco's coat of arms, which depicts two monks with swords, reminder of the cunning that won them their realm. But the story does not end with this dramatic seizure of power. In fact, it is only beginning. Francesco's hold on Monaco proves brief. Within 4 years, the Genoese manage to expel him. The Grimaldis are forced once again into exile, taking refuge in nearby Provence. Yet they do not abandon their claim to the rock. Raniera I, Francesco's cousin, continues the struggle, serving as admiral to the King of France and using this position to strengthen the family's standing. Through military service, strategic marriages, and political alliances, the Grimaldis gradually rebuild their power. In 1331, they recapture Monaco, this time establishing a more enduring rule. The fortress becomes their home, the base from which they will navigate the treacherous waters of Mediterranean politics for centuries to come. Imagine the Monaco of these early Grimaldi years, a fortress town perched on its limestone promontory, surrounded by the sea on 3 sides. The walls are thick, designed to withstand siege and storm alike. Within their protective embrace, narrow streets wind between stone houses built close together for security. The air carries the mingled scents of cooking fires, fish drying in the sun, salt, and the ever-present Mediterranean herbs that cling to the rocky slopes. From the highest point of the rock, the Lord's residence commands a sweeping view of the coastline and the sea beyond. On clear days, one can see far along the coast in both directions and out to the horizon where the blue of the sea meets the blue of the sky in a hazy line. This view is not merely beautiful, it is strategic, allowing the rulers of Monaco to spot approaching danger weather in the form of storms or hostile ships long before it reaches their shores. The early Grimaldis understood the precarious nature of their position. Monaco was small, vulnerable, caught between greater powers. Its value lay in its position, a natural harbor on a coastline with few safe anchorages, a fortress commanding a strategic stretch of the coastal route. The Grimaldis had to leverage these assets carefully to ensure their survival. They developed a pattern that would serve them well for centuries, pledging loyalty to stronger powers while maintaining as much independence as possible, playing competing powers against each other, and always focusing on the sea as their lifeline. Under Grimaldi rule, Monaco became known for its skilled sailors and its galleys that patrolled the waters of the western Mediterranean. Rainier, remembered as the oceanographer, was renowned for his naval exploits in the service of France. His ships, flying the red and white colors of the Grimaldis, became a familiar sight along the coasts of southern Europe. The night deepens around us as we contemplate this early chapter in Monaco's history. The stars wheel slowly overhead, the same stars that guided Grimaldi's ships across the Mediterranean centuries ago. The waves continue their endless conversation with the shore, a soothing rhythm that has accompanied Monaco's story from its beginning. As the first light of dawn begins to touch the eastern horizon, let us move forward in our tale to the time when Monaco began to formalize its status as an independent state, rather than simply a fortress held by a powerful family. The 14th and 15th centuries were times of both consolidation and danger for the Grimaldis. They strengthened their hold on Monaco, expanded their territory to include neighboring Menton and Roquebrune, and sought recognition from the greater powers of Europe. But they also faced repeated challenges to their rule from Genoa, from the Dukes of Savoy, from rival noble families, and from the changing political landscape of Europe itself. In 1489, King Charles VIII of France formally recognized Monaco's independence, a crucial step in establishing the principality's legitimate status. But recognition did not guarantee security. The tiny state remained vulnerable to the ambitions of its neighbors and the shifting alliances of European politics. The Grimaldis navigated these dangers with remarkable skill. When necessary, they fought Monaco's fortress was attacked and besieged multiple times throughout its history. But more often, they survived through diplomacy, through strategic marriages that forged alliances with powerful families, and through a willingness to adapt to changing circumstances. One of the most significant adaptations came in 1524, when Honoré Grimaldi signed a treaty placing Monaco under the protection of Spain, then the dominant power in the Western Mediterranean. This arrangement, which would last for nearly a century, provided security but came at the cost of hosting a Spanish garrison in Monaco and following Spanish foreign policy. Imagine Monaco during this period. The fortress expanded and strengthened with Spanish support. Spanish soldiers a common sight on its narrow streets, Spanish ships frequent visitors to its harbor. The official language of the court becomes Spanish, though the common people continue to speak their local dialect, a mix of Genoese and Provençal. The influence of Spain shows in the architecture, in the cuisine, in the customs of the court. From the highest towers of the fortress, now grown into a proper palace, the princes of Monaco could look out over their tiny domain, the rock itself, the small harbor below, and the modest territory extending along the coast. Beyond that, the world, vast, dangerous, yet also full of opportunity for those clever enough to seize it. And the Grimaldis were nothing if not clever. They had to be. Their realm was too small, too poor in natural resources, too vulnerable to survive otherwise. Their territory produced some olive oil, some citrus fruits, some wine, but not in quantities sufficient to generate significant wealth. The sea provided fish, and the harbor offered the possibility of collecting duties from ships seeking safe anchorage. But these were modest sources of income for a ruling family. So the Grimaldis looked beyond their borders. They served as admirals and generals for greater powers. They married their sons and daughters into wealthy and influential families. They cultivated relationships with the courts of Europe. They survived, century after century, while greater states rose and fell around them. The Mediterranean night surrounds us once more as we contemplate this remarkable feat of survival. The scent of salt and jasmine mingles in the air. The sound of the waves provides a gentle backdrop to our thoughts. Far off, perhaps, we hear the call of a night bird or the distant bells of a ship at anchor. Monaco sleeps beneath the stars, as it has for centuries, secure in its rocky fastness. But greater challenges lie ahead in our story. The 17th century brings a pivotal moment for the tiny principality, one that will test the Grimaldis' diplomatic skills to their limit. By the early 1600s, the power of Spain is waning, while France, under Louis XIII and his minister Cardinal Richelieu, is ascending. Prince Honor II of Monaco, a cultured and shrewd ruler, recognizes that the time has come to reconsider Monaco's Spanish alliance. Maintaining ties to a declining power could prove dangerous, particularly with an ambitious France just beyond Monaco's borders. In 1641, after careful secret negotiations, Honor executes a dramatic shift in alliance. On the night of November 17th, he invites the Spanish garrison commander to dinner at the palace. While the meal is in progress, Monegasque guards and French soldiers who had been smuggled into the fortress overpowered the Spanish garrison. By morning, the Spanish flag has been lowered, and the standard of France flies over Monaco. The Treaty of Payerne, signed in 1641, establishes Monaco as a protectorate of France. The arrangement confirms Monaco's sovereignty while placing it under French military protection. The Grimaldis are granted extensive French estates to compensate for properties they forfeit in Spanish-controlled territories. Honor too receives the title of foreign prince in the French nobility, a recognition of Monaco's status as an independent state allied with, but not subject to, France. This realignment proves fortuitous. Under French protection, Monaco enters a period of relative stability and cultural flowering. Honor too, an avid collector and patron of the arts, begins assembling what will become one of the finest private art collections in Europe. The palace is enlarged and embellished with paintings, sculptures, tapestries, and furniture reflecting the latest French styles. Imagine the palace during this period. Grand rooms with high ceilings adorned with frescoes, walls hung with tapestries and paintings by Italian and French masters, furniture of gilded wood upholstered in rich fabrics, floors of marble or intricate parquetry, large windows capturing the Mediterranean light and framing views of the sea and coastline. In the evenings, chandeliers and wall sconces filled with beeswax candles illuminate these spaces, their light reflected in mirrors and polished surfaces, creating an atmosphere of glittering elegance. The Grimaldis live like kings in their miniature realm, entertaining distinguished visitors, maintaining a court that, while small, adheres to all the elaborate protocols and ceremonies of the age. They send their sons to be educated in Paris, forge marriage alliances with the great noble families of France and Italy, and participate in the cultural and intellectual life of Europe. Yet beneath this glittering surface, the fundamental challenges of ruling Monaco remain. The principality is still small, still vulnerable, still dependent on external protection and lacking significant natural resources. Its prosperity depends on the wisdom and diplomatic skill of its rulers, on their ability to navigate the treacherous waters of European power politics. The arrangement with France serves Monaco well for generations, but like all human arrangements, it is subject to the winds of change. And the greatest wind of all the French Revolution of 1789 will soon sweep across Europe, uprooting centuries-old institutions and threatening the very existence of Monaco. As the revolutionary fervor spreads beyond France's borders, Monaco finds itself in an impossible position. Prince Honor III, who has ruled since 1733, tries to accommodate the new revolutionary government in France while preserving Monaco's independence and his own authority. It is a delicate balancing act, and ultimately an unsuccessful one. In January 1793, the National Convention of Revolutionary France votes to annex Monaco. French troops occupy the principality. The prince is arrested and imprisoned in Paris, narrowly escaping the guillotine that claims so many aristocratic lives during the Reign of Terror. Monaco ceases to exist as an independent state, becoming instead part of the French department of Alpes-Maritimes for 21 years. Monaco remains under French control. The palace is stripped of many of its treasures. The principality's special status, its customs, its traditions all are subsumed into revolutionary and then Napoleonic France. It seems the end of 8 centuries of Grimaldi rule, the end of Monaco itself as anything more than a picturesque town on the French Riviera. But history, like the Mediterranean Sea, has its tides. What recedes may later return. And so it proves for Monaco. The night deepens around us as we contemplate this seeming end to Monaco's story. The stars wheel slowly overhead. The waves continue their eternal rhythm against the base of the rock. Perhaps, in the darkness, we can sense the presence of all those who have stood here before us, looking out over this same sea, wondering what the future might hold for the tiny realm perched between mountains and water. With the defeat of Napoleon in 1815, the map of Europe is redrawn at the Congress of Vienna. Against all odds, Monaco is restored as an independent principality. But there is a significant change. It is now placed under the protection of the Kingdom of Sardinia, not France. Honor for Grimaldi returns to reclaim his ancestral throne, finding his realm diminished but intact. The 19th century brings new challenges to Monaco. Under Sardinian protection, the principality recovers from the revolutionary period, but its economy remains weak. The Grimaldis are land-rich but cash-poor, with estates in France but limited revenue from Monaco itself. The population is small, numbering just a few thousand, mostly engaged in fishing, small-scale agriculture, and producing pottery and oils. Then comes a blow that threatens to destroy Monaco's viability as an independent state. In 1848, the towns of Menton and Roquebrune, which had been part of the principality for centuries and provided much of its agricultural land, declare themselves free cities under Sardinian protection. Monaco is suddenly reduced to little more than the rock itself, an area of less than 1 square mile. Imagine the Monaco of this period. The palace still stands proudly on the rock, but the principality's territory has shrunk dramatically. The Grimaldis rule over a population of perhaps 1,000 people, a harbour too small for modern shipping, and virtually no economic resources. Their sovereignty, though recognized in principle, seems increasingly hollow in practice. The situation worsens in 1861 when Sardinia cedes its territories in the region to France as part of the unification of Italy. Monaco finds itself once again surrounded entirely by French territory. Under the Franco-Monegasque Treaty of 1861, Monaco regains its status as an independent state under French protection, but at a heavy price. Prince Charles III is forced to cede the rights to Menton and Roquebrune, which constitute 95% of Monaco's former territory, permanently reducing the principality to its current size. This is perhaps the darkest moment in Monaco's modern history. The principality has lost most of its land, has no significant sources of revenue, and faces an uncertain future under the shadow of a powerful France that could choose to absorb it at any time. Charles III and his advisors understand that without a new source of income, Monaco's days as an independent state are numbered. And so, in a gamble worthy of the most daring Grimaldi ancestors, they make a decision that will transform Monaco forever. They decide to establish a casino. The night deepens as we contemplate this pivotal moment in Monaco's history. The Mediterranean breeze carries the scent of salt and wild herbs. The waves whisper against the shore, a sound that has remained constant while empires rose and fell, while Monaco's fortunes waxed and waned. Now, as the principality faces its greatest crisis, a new chapter is about to begin. Chapter that will see the barren rock transformed into a glittering playground for the wealthy and a byword for luxury throughout the world. The idea of a casino was not entirely new. Small gambling establishments had existed briefly in Monaco earlier in the century, but they had been modest affairs that generated little revenue. What Charles III and his advisors envisioned was something far more ambitious. A grand casino that would attract the wealthy elite of Europe, transforming Monaco into a luxury destination and providing the principality with a reliable source of income. In 1863, Charles III grants a concession to open a casino to Francois Blanc, a French entrepreneur who had successfully operated the casino at Bad Homburg in Germany. Blanc is a visionary who understands that a successful casino must be more than a gambling hall. It must be a complete experience, offering luxury, entertainment, and an escape from the ordinary world. The location chosen for this new venture is a barren plateau to the east of Monaco's Old Town, an area then known simply as Les Belogues, the Caves. Blanc renames it Monte Carlo Mount Charles in honor of the prince, a name that will soon become synonymous with glamour and high-stakes gambling. Construction begins in 1863. Imagine the scene, a rocky plateau overlooking the Mediterranean, previously home to nothing but scrub vegetation and perhaps a few goat herders, now swarming with workers. The sound of hammers and chisels echoes across the water. Dust rises in clouds, visible from far out at sea. Mule trains labor up the steep paths, bringing building materials, stone, timber, marble, glass. Architects and craftsmen from France and Italy direct the work, creating, in this unlikely setting, a palace dedicated to pleasure and chance. The Casino de Monte Carlo opens in 1863, initially in temporary quarters. The permanent building, designed by French architect Charles Garnier, who also designed the Paris Opera, is completed in 1879. It is a masterpiece of Belle Epoque architecture, with a facade of cream-colored stone adorned with columns, sculptures, and ornate detailing, all overlooking the deep blue of the Mediterranean. Inside, the casino is equally impressive. A grand atrium with marble columns and a ceiling adorned with frescoes leads to the gaming rooms, each more opulent than the last. The Salle Garnier, an ornate theatre attached to the casino, hosts opera and ballet performances that rival those of major European capitals. Crystal chandeliers illuminate surfaces of polished wood, gilt bronze, and red velvet. The air is perfumed with the scent of expensive cigars, French perfume, and the indefinable but intoxicating aroma of wealth and privilege. From the beginning, Francois Blanc understands that the casino's success depends on attracting the right clientele, aristocracy, the wealthy bourgeoisie, the international elite who can afford to lose large sums of money without hardship. He ensures that Monte Carlo offers not just gambling, but a complete luxury experience. A grand hotel, fine restaurants, elegant boutiques, cultural entertainments, and the natural beauty of the Mediterranean setting. The timing proves fortuitous. The second half of the 19th century sees the rise of the leisure class in Europe. People with both money and time to spend on pleasure. The development of railways makes travel easier than ever before. The fashion for taking the waters at spa towns expands to include winter sojourns on the mild Mediterranean coast. Monte Carlo quickly becomes a fashionable destination for European high society, particularly during the winter months when the northern parts of the continent are cold and grey. The Prince of Wales, the future King Edward VII of England, is a frequent visitor, his presence attracting other members of the British aristocracy, Russian Grand Dukes, German princes, French dukes, American millionaires, come to try their luck at the tables and to see and be seen in this exclusive enclave. The success of the casino transforms Monaco's fortunes. By 1869, the revenue is sufficient for Charles III to abolish all direct taxation for Monegasque citizens, a policy that will become a cornerstone of Monaco's appeal in the modern era. The casino's profits fund public works, the expansion and beautification of Monte Carlo, and the operations of the princely government. Monaco begins to develop the infrastructure needed to support its new role as a luxury destination. Roads are improved, grand hotels are built, gardens are laid out on terrain too steep or rocky for construction. The once barren plateau of Monte Carlo is transformed into a Belle Epoque fantasy of ornate buildings, exotic gardens, and promenades overlooking the sea. Imagine Monte Carlo in the late 19th century, the casino gleaming white against the blue sky and bluer sea, the terraced gardens descending to the shore, filled with palm trees, tropical flowers, and classical statuary. Elegant couples promenading along pathways or sipping cocktails on hotel terraces. The air filled with the sounds of orchestras playing in the casino and hotel lounges. And, at night, the buildings illuminated with the still novel electric light, creating a glittering spectacle visible from ships far out at sea. The transformation is remarkable. In the space of a few decades, Monaco has reinvented itself from a nearly bankrupt microstate on the verge of extinction to one of the most fashionable destinations in Europe. The barren rock has become a byword for luxury and glamour. The Grimaldis, once struggling to maintain their sovereignty over a diminished realm, now preside over a tiny but prosperous state that punches far above its weight in international affairs. But the casino alone, however successful, could not secure Monaco's long-term future. For that, the principality needed international recognition of its sovereignty and stable relations with France, the giant neighbor that surrounded it on three sides. Prince Albert I, who succeeds Charles III in 1889, focuses on establishing Monaco's place in the international community. A passionate oceanographer who founds the Oceanographic Museum of Monaco, still one of the most respected marine science institutions in the world. Albert I raises Monaco's profile through his scientific work and his advocacy for international cooperation. During his reign, Monaco joins the international postal and telegraph unions, issues its own stamps and currency, and establishes diplomatic relations with other countries. These steps, while seemingly mundane, are crucial assertions of Monaco's status as a sovereign state rather than a mere resort town. Albert I also navigates the delicate relationship with France, maintaining Monaco's independence while acknowledging the reality of French protection. The Franco-Monegasque Treaty of 1918 formalizes this relationship, recognizing Monaco's sovereignty while stipulating that the principality must exercise its rights in conformity with French interests. One of the most significant provisions of this treaty concerns the succession to the Monegasque throne. If the reigning prince dies without male heirs, Monaco will not remain independent but will become a French protectorate. This clause, which reflects France's ongoing interest in potentially absorbing Monaco, will later create a constitutional crisis that threatens the principality's continued existence. As the 19th century gives way to the 20th, Monaco continues to develop as a luxury destination. The Monte Carlo Rally, first held in 1911, adds sports to the principality's attractions, drawing automobile enthusiasts from across Europe. The Ballet de Monte Carlo, founded in 1909, establishes the principality as a center for the arts as well as gambling and leisure. The night deepens around us as we contemplate Monaco's remarkable transformation. The stars shine above, the same stars that have witnessed the principality's evolution from a barren rock to a glittering enclave of wealth and privilege. The waves continue their eternal conversation with the shore, a soothing backdrop to our thoughts. But challenges lie ahead for Monaco. The 20th century will bring 2 world wars, economic depression, and social changes that will test the principality's adaptability once again. The Grimaldis will face personal tragedies and constitutional crises that threaten their 8th century rule. and Monaco will need to reinvent itself once more to survive in a changing world. The first decades of the 20th century are a golden age for Monaco. The casino continues to thrive, attracting an international clientele of aristocrats, industrialists, and the newly rich. Monte Carlo becomes a fixture in popular culture, featured in novels, plays, and early films as the epitome of sophistication and glamour. The names Monaco and Monte Carlo become shorthand for luxury, wealth, and a certain carefree lifestyle available only to the privileged few. World War I disrupts this idyll, but does not fundamentally change Monaco's character or economy. The Principality maintains its neutrality while supporting France through Prince Albert I's personal diplomacy and the provision of a hospital for wounded French soldiers. The international elite may be temporarily distracted by the conflict, but they return to the Riviera once peace is restored. The interwar period sees Monaco consolidate its position as a playground for the wealthy. New hotels and apartment buildings rise along the waterfront and on the slopes surrounding Monte Carlo. The casino continues to evolve, adding new games and amenities to attract a clientele now expanded to include Hollywood stars, wealthy Americans escaping prohibition, and the international set chronicled by writers like F. Scott Fitzgerald and Somerset Maugham. Imagine Monaco in the 1920s. Rolls-Royces and Hispano-Suizes glide along the Cornish roads. Women in Chanel dresses and men in white dinner jackets gather for cocktails on hotel terraces. The casino hums with the sound of roulette wheels and the murmur of multilingual conversation. Orchestras play dance music late into the night. Champagne flows freely, and everywhere there is the sense of being in a special enclave, separated from the ordinary world and its concerns. But beneath this glittering surface, Monaco faces significant challenges. The global economic depression of the 1930s reduces the flow of wealthy visitors. The rise of fascism in Italy and Nazism in Germany casts a shadow over Europe. And within Monaco itself, a succession crisis looms that threatens the Principality's continued independence. Prince Louis II, who succeeds Albert I in 1922, has no legitimate male heir. Under the terms of the Franco-Monegasque Treaty of 1918, this situation could lead to Monaco becoming a French protectorate. Louis II does have an illegitimate daughter, Charlotte, whom he had legally adopted in 1919 as a potential heir. But her status remains uncertain, and France shows interest in enforcing the treaty provisions regarding succession. In 1944, as World War II nears its end, Charlotte renounces her rights to the throne in favor of her son, Rainier. This solves the immediate succession crisis, but Monaco's position remains precarious. The Principality has survived Nazi occupation during the war, though, with a complex and sometimes controversial relationship with the Vichy regime and the occupying Italians and Germans. Its economy is in shambles, its buildings in disrepair, and its international reputation somewhat tarnished. When Rainier III ascends to the throne in 1949, he inherits a principality at a crossroads. The pre-war model of Monaco as a seasonal resort for European aristocracy seems increasingly outdated in the post-war world. The casino, while still operating, no longer generates sufficient revenue to support the state. Monaco needs to reinvent itself once again to survive in the changed circumstances of the mid-20th century. Rainier proves to be a transformative ruler, with a vision of modernizing Monaco while preserving its sovereignty and unique character. He recognizes that the Principality must diversify its economy beyond gambling, develop new sources of revenue, and create a more substantial physical and legal infrastructure. Under Rainier's direction, Monaco embarks on an ambitious program of land reclamation from the sea, expanding its territory by nearly 20% over the decades of his reign. New apartment buildings, hotels, and commercial developments rise on this reclaimed land, transforming Monaco's skyline and creating valuable real estate in one of the most densely populated countries in the world. Imagine Monaco during this period of transformation. The constant sound of construction, cranes dominating the skyline, trucks carrying earth and building materials along the narrow streets, the coastline itself changing shape as new land extends into the Mediterranean. And amid all this activity, the casino and the old town on the rock remaining as anchors of continuity in a rapidly changing landscape. Rainier also updates Monaco's legal and financial systems, establishing the Principality as a low-tax jurisdiction that attracts wealthy residents and businesses from around the world. While careful to distance Monaco from the label of tax haven with its implications of financial impropriety, Rainier and his advisors create conditions highly favorable to private wealth management, luxury real estate investment, and certain types of international business. But perhaps the most significant development in Monaco's modern history, and certainly the most fairy tale-like, is Rainier's marriage to American film star Grace Kelly in 1956. This union, which captures the imagination of people worldwide, brings Monaco unprecedented publicity and permanently alters its international image. Grace Kelly, with her beauty, elegance, and impeccable taste, becomes the perfect embodiment of Monaco's aspirations. As Princess Grace, she brings Hollywood glamour to the ancient Grimaldi dynasty, attracting media attention and visitors to the Principality. Her presence helps transform Monaco from a somewhat faded gambling resort to a modern symbol of glamour, wealth, and fairy tale romance. The night surrounds us as we contemplate this pivotal chapter in Monaco's history. The Mediterranean breeze carries the mingled scents of salt, jasmine, and expensive perfume. Far below, perhaps we hear the purr of a luxury car navigating the winding Corniche road, or the distant music from a waterfront restaurant. Monaco has reinvented itself once again, adapting to changing times, while maintaining its essential character as an enclave of privilege and luxury. The marriage of Rainier and Grace marks the beginning of Monaco's contemporary era. In the decades that follow, the Principality continues to evolve, developing new industries and attractions, while preserving its core appeal as a safe, luxurious, and tax-advantageous haven for the world's wealthy. The 1960s and 70s see Monaco solidify its status as a center for high-end tourism and international events. The Monte Carlo Television Festival, founded in 1961, brings media attention and celebrities to the Principality. The Monte Carlo Rally becomes part of the World Rally Championship, attracting motorsport enthusiasts. The Monte Carlo Masters Tennis Tournament, one of the oldest and most prestigious in the sport, continues to draw top players and spectators to the Principality each spring. But the most significant sporting event associated with Monaco is undoubtedly the Monaco Grand Prix, first run in 1929. This Formula One race through the narrow streets of Monte Carlo becomes one of the most famous and challenging motor races in the world. The sound of high-performance engines echoing off the buildings, the sight of cars threading the needle between barriers with the blue Mediterranean as backdrop, the celebrities and royalty watching from yacht decks and apartment balconies all combined to create an event that epitomizes Monaco's unique blend of sport, spectacle, and exclusivity. Imagine Monaco during Grand Prix weekend. The Principality transformed into a racetrack. Grandstands erected along the harbor and in front of the casino. The streets closed to normal traffic, the air filled with the scream of engines and the scent of high-octane fuel. Hotels are fully booked months in advance. Restaurants and bars overflow with visitors. Helicopters shuttle the ultra-wealthy between Nice Airport and Monaco's heliport. Super yachts line the harbor, their decks crowded with guests attending lavish parties. For these few days each year, Monaco becomes the center of the sporting world, its population swelling too many times its normal size. The Grand Prix exemplifies Monaco's genius for leveraging its limitations into strengths. The very constraints that might seem to make a modern motor race impossible. The narrow streets, the tight corners, the lack of runoff areas become the features that make the Monaco Grand Prix uniquely challenging and prestigious. What other venue would dare to run 200 miles per hour vehicles through a tunnel and around a harbor? Yet Monaco does, and in doing so creates an event that generates global publicity and significant revenue. Beyond sports and entertainment, Monaco continues to develop its economy in the post-war decades. Under Rainier's leadership, the Principality attracts banks, financial services firms, and wealth management companies drawn by the favorable tax regime and the proximity to wealthy clients. Monaco's status as a financial center is enhanced by its political stability, security, and discretional qualities highly valued by the wealthy. The Société des Bains de Mer, SBM, the company that operates the casino and many of Monaco's luxury hotels and restaurants, evolves into a diversified hospitality and entertainment group. While gambling remains part of its portfolio, SBM increasingly focuses on high-end hotels, gastronomy, nightlife, and wellness facilities, catering to an international clientele that expects the best of everything. Real estate becomes one of Monaco's most valuable assets and industries. With buildable land scarce and demand high, property prices in the Principality rise to become among the highest in the world. Apartment buildings climb ever higher on the steep slopes surrounding the original settlement, their terraces and pools offering spectacular views of the Mediterranean. Older buildings are demolished and replaced with more modern structures that maximize the use of limited space. The transformation of Monaco's physical landscape continues with ongoing land reclamation projects. The Fontville district, created entirely on land reclaimed from the sea between 1966 and 1973, adds valuable space for residential and commercial development. The reclamation process itself is a feat of engineering. Huge concrete caissons are constructed on land, floated into position, sunk to the seabed, and then filled with earth and rock to create new land where once there was only water. Imagine standing at a vantage point overlooking Monaco and watching this process unfold over decades. The natural coastline gradually extending outward, new districts emerging from the sea, the skyline growing denser and higher. The Principality literally creating new territory for itself in defiance of its geographical limitations. From the original settlement on the rock, Monaco has expanded in all possible directions, the steep slopes behind it, down into the sea before it, and even underground, with extensive networks of tunnels and parking garages burrowed into the limestone. The night deepens as we contemplate this physical transformation. The stars shine above, unchanged by human endeavors. The waves continue their eternal rhythm against the shore, though now in many places they meet not natural rock but concrete seawalls and carefully engineered beaches. Monaco has reshaped its coastline, extended its territory, and built upward toward the sky, all to accommodate more people, more buildings, more activity within its tiny boundaries. But amid these dramatic physical changes, the essence of Monaco remains constant. It is still a sovereign microstate ruled by the Grimaldi dynasty, still an enclave of wealth and privilege, still a place apart from the ordinary world, operating by its own rules and standards. The 1980s bring both prosperity and tragedy to Monaco. The Principality continues to thrive economically, attracting wealthy residents and visitors from around the world. Its reputation as a tax haven is both a liability in relations with other countries and an asset in attracting wealthy individuals looking to protect their assets. But in 1982, Monaco suffers a devastating loss when Princess Riyadh's Grace dies in a car accident on one of the Cornish roads overlooking the Principality. Her death at the age of 52 shocks the world and leaves Monaco without its most glamorous and beloved ambassador. Prince Rainier, though continues to rule and to pursue his vision of modernizing Monaco while preserving its sovereignty and unique character. In the decades following Princess Grace's death, Monaco faces new challenges and opportunities. The end of the Cold War and the acceleration of globalization create a more interconnected world with greater mobility of capital and people. Monaco positions itself to take advantage of these trends, marketing itself as a secure, stable haven in an uncertain world. The Principality continues to host international events that enhance its prestige and attract visitors. The Monaco Yacht Show becomes one of the world's premier exhibitions of super yachts. The Monte Carlo Ballet and Philharmonic Orchestra maintain Monaco's cultural credentials. Various conferences and forums on topics from health to sustainable development add intellectual heft to the Principality's reputation. Prince Albert II, who succeeds his father Rainier in 2005, brings new priorities to Monaco's governance, particularly in the areas of environmental protection and sustainable development. An avid sportsman and former Olympic bobsledder, Albert also enhances Monaco's connection to the Olympic movement and other international sporting organizations. Under Albert's leadership, Monaco addresses some of the concerns about its financial system, signing agreements on tax information exchange and working to shed its reputation as a haven for tax evasion. While maintaining Monaco's attractiveness as a low-tax jurisdiction, Albert recognizes the need for greater transparency and cooperation with other countries on financial matters. The Principality also continues its physical expansion, with the ambitious Portier Cove land reclamation project announced in 2013. This development, extending out from the Lervoto beach area, will add approximately 15 acres of new land to Monaco, accommodating luxury residences, retail spaces, a marina, and public parks. The project incorporates advanced environmental protections and is designed to minimize impact on marine ecosystems. Imagine Monaco today, a densely packed urban landscape clinging to steep slopes and extending into the sea. High-rise apartment buildings with panoramic Mediterranean views. The Belle Epoque Casino still standing proudly at the heart of Monte Carlo. Super yachts moored in the harbor. Luxury cars navigating the narrow streets. People of various nationalities conversing in multiple languages in cafes and restaurants. Surveillance cameras discreetly monitoring public spaces, ensuring the security that residents and visitors value. And everywhere the sense of exclusivity, of being in a place reserved for the fortunate few. The contrasts are striking, the ancient and the ultra-modern coexisting within a few square kilometers. The Grimaldi Palace, with its roots in the 13th century, standing near sleek glass, standsteel apartment towers completed just years ago. Traditional Monegasque customs and festivals continuing alongside the most contemporary expressions of luxury and technology. A monarchy with feudal origins governing a state that houses advanced research facilities and cutting-edge businesses. As night settles over the Mediterranean, We might reflect on the improbable journey of Monaco from a barren rock to a symbol of wealth and luxury known throughout the world. How has this tiny state, with no natural resources, no agricultural land, no strategic military value in the modern era, managed not merely to survive, but to thrive in a world of nation-states thousands of times its size? The answer lies partly in the remarkable adaptability of Monaco and its ruling family. Throughout their history, the Grimaldis have shown an uncanny ability to read the changing tides of European politics and economics, to align themselves with rising powers, to identify new opportunities when traditional sources of security or revenue fail. From fortress to casino to tax haven to luxury brand, Monaco has reinvented itself repeatedly, always finding a new role that ensures its continued existence and prosperity. But Monaco's success also reflects something deeper about human nature and society. The Principality has understood and catered to enduring human desires for security, for status, for pleasure, for beauty, for exclusivity. It has created a space where wealth can enjoy itself without apology, where the privileged can live among their peers, where the trappings of luxury are not merely available but omnipresent. In doing so, Monaco has made itself indispensable to a certain segment of global society. It has become a node in the international network of wealth, a recognized and valued part of the geography of privilege. This status, as much as any treaty or diplomatic recognition, ensures Monaco's continued existence. Too many powerful people and institutions have a stake in the Principality's survival for it to be allowed to disappear. As we contemplate Monaco's future, we might wonder how this tiny state will navigate the challenges of the 21st century. Climate change threatens its coastline and may alter the Mediterranean climate that is part of its appeal. Growing concerns about inequality and the social responsibilities of wealth may increase pressure on tax havens and concentrations of extreme affluence. Technological changes may disrupt industries central to Monaco's economy, from banking to tourism. Yet if history is any guide, Monaco will find ways to adapt to these challenges, just as it has adapted to the countless challenges of the past. The rock that has witnessed the rise and fall of empires, that has survived wars and revolutions, economic booms and busts, will likely continue to stand, crowned with its palace and overlooking a principality that somehow manages to thrive against all logical expectations. The Mediterranean night enfolds us as we conclude our journey through Monaco's remarkable history. The stars shine overhead, the same stars that guided Phoenician ships to this harbor 3,000 years ago. The waves continue their eternal conversation with the shore, a rhythm that has accompanied Monaco's story from its beginning and will continue long after our tale is done. Perhaps, in the gentle darkness, we can sense the presence of all those who have stood here before us, the ancient mariners who found shelter in the natural harbor, Francesco Grimaldi, the cunning monk who seized the fortress on a winter night, the princes who navigated the treacherous waters of European politics to preserve their tiny realm, the visionaries who transformed a barren rock into a playground for the wealthy, Princess Grace, whose elegance and beauty gave Monaco a fairy tale dimension, and countless others whose lives have intersected with this improbable microstate perched between mountains and sea. Monaco slumbers beneath the stars, secure in its rocky fastness, surrounded by the wealth it has accumulated, protected by the reputation and relationships it has cultivated over centuries. The Grimaldi flag flies over the palace, as it has with only brief interruptions since 1297. The casino lights shine over the harbor, where super yachts rock gently in the night breeze. In apartments and villas, the privileged residents of the world's second smallest country rest easily, knowing they are in one of the safest, most exclusive, and most privileged enclaves on Earth. And so our story of Monaco draws to a close, though the Principality's own story continues to unfold, day by day, year by year, century by century, from a barren rock to a global symbol of luxury and wealth, from a vulnerable fortress to a secure microstate, from poverty to immense prosperity. Monaco's journey embodies the power of human adaptability, strategic thinking, and the ability to transform limitations into strengths. As dawn approaches, painting the Mediterranean sky with the first pale light of day, we might reflect on the lessons of Monaco's remarkable survival, that size is not always destiny, that adaptability can overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges, that understanding human desires and catering to them can be as valuable as possessing natural resources or military might, and that sometimes the most enduring power lies not in confronting greater forces head-on, but in finding a unique niche where one can thrive beyond their reach. The sun rises over the Mediterranean, illuminating the densely packed buildings of Monaco, the yachts in the harbor, the palace on the rock, and beyond them the blue expanse of the sea that has been both Monaco's highway to the world and its bulwark against it. Another day begins in the Principality, another small step in a history that stretches back through centuries and forward into a future that, if the past is any guide, will see Monaco continue to defy expectations and forge its own improbable path through the world. As the morning light grows stronger, as the Principality awakens to another day of privilege and prosperity, we take our leave, carrying with us the memory of this place where human ingenuity and adaptability have transformed a barren rock into one of the most recognized and envied addresses in the world. Monaco remains behind, a glittering anomaly on the Mediterranean coast, a testament to the enduring power of reinvention and the sometimes surprising ways in which the small and seemingly vulnerable can not merely survive but flourish in the shadow of the great and powerful. The warm Mediterranean sun now fully illuminates the Principality, glinting off glass towers and azure swimming pools, highlighting the Belle Epoque elegance of the casino, warming the ancient stones of the palace on the rock. Monaco faces the new day as it has faced countless days before, proud, prosperous, and determined to continue its improbable story for centuries to come. Let us leave Monaco to its daily rhythm of luxury and privilege, carrying with us the memory of this remarkable microstate and the lessons it offers about survival, adaptation, and the unexpected ways in which history unfolds. The story of the rock from barren promontory to global symbol of wealth and luxury reminds us that even the most unlikely settings can become centers of power and influence when human ingenuity, strategic thinking, and a clear understanding of human desires are brought to bear on the challenges of survival and prosperity. As we depart, the sounds of Monaco fade behind the purr of luxury cars, the murmur of multilingual conversations in street cafes, the distant clinking of glasses on yacht decks, the occasional shouts of workers on construction sites where the Principality continues its never-ending process of self-renewal and expansion. These sounds give way to the more eternal rhythm of the Mediterranean itself, the whisper of waves against the shore, the cry of seabirds, the rustle of the breeze through palms and pines. Monaco remains a glittering microcosm of wealth and privilege, a principality that has survived against all odds through 8 centuries of European history. Its story is a reminder of the surprising ways in which human societies evolve, adapt, and sometimes transform apparent weaknesses into extraordinary strengths. And so our journey through Monaco's remarkable history comes to an end, though the Principality's own journey continues. Day by day, year by year, century by century, an ongoing testament to the power of reinvention and the enduring appeal of a place apart. A haven from the ordinary world. A dream of luxury and privilege made real on a once barren rock overlooking the timeless Mediterranean.